Welcome back, sleepyheads. You've wandered in right on time. Before Silas steps into the sand, a word from the voice behind the clock. You know, the one who winds these journeys and lets them breathe. Timbuktu, 1324. The night a gold caravan rolls in behind Mansa Musa, so wealthy his footsteps bend markets and memories for generations. This isn't a conquest or chaos, it's power moving slowly, wrapped in silk, prayer, and starlight. A city where knowledge weighs as much as gold, and every alley hums with consequence. It's the perfect place for a quiet walk. History isn't rushing here, it's arriving. Feel like drifting through moments that change the world without raising their voice? Settle in. Join the sleepy circle. Let's begin.
I'm Silas. I'm Silas, your soft-spoken trespasser in time, here to whisper you to sleep while empires make terrible financial decisions. If my voice helps you drift off during history's most expensive flex, tap like, subscribe, ring the bell. Offer the algorithm a tiny goat in tribute. Tell me where you're listening from, and I promise I won't stalk you. Unless you're hiding in a caravan with several tons of gold and no security plan. In that case, I'm already walking beside you, and we both need better hobbies. Now, breathe in slow. Sand in. Worries out. We're going to a city the medieval world thought was a rumor. The year is 1324. The Sahara is awake, and somewhere out there, Mansa Musa, richest man the gossip ever met, is marching toward Timbuktu with enough gold to give an economist a stroke. Let's begin. The first thing I notice is that the desert is not empty. From a distance, the dunes look like silence sculpted into waves, endless, obedient, harmless. But standing at what the locals call the dune gate, where the last scrub and rock give up and surrender to pure sand, you can hear it. A low, constant murmur, like the world grinding its teeth in its sleep. The dunes move. Not fast, not dramatic, just an endless, patient crawl. The wind combs their backs, drawing ripples so precise they could be calligraphy if you knew how to read what the desert writes. The air smells of dust and sun-baked stone. Dry, but not clean. Ancient. Like the breath of a library where half the books are buried, and the other half are ghosts. I stand on the ridge and watch the horizon melt. The line between sand and sky isn't a line at all. It's a negotiation. Heat shimmers, rising in thin, transparent veils that wobble and twist. The sun hasn't decided whether it's morning or murder weapon yet. Welcome to the front door of Timbuktu, I murmur. No walls, just an ocean that forgot the water. Behind me, there's the faint suggestion of civilization. Mud brick buildings, a few scrub trees clinging to dignity, two goats arguing over something that is absolutely not food. Ahead, waves of gold dust big enough to swallow cities. I start walking. My footsteps make a soft, collapsing sound. Tiny landslides, each one undone by the next gust of wind. The sand is cool at first, the night still holding on in the shadows of the dunes. It brushes my ankles like a cat, with questionable motives. The wind picks up, brushing past my ears in dry sighs. It sounds like someone whispering in a language too old to translate. The desert does not care that a king is coming. The desert has seen them all, and buried a few. I crest another dune, and the world stretches out. Even more nothing, arranged very carefully. Then I see it. At first, it's just a shimmer on the far ridge, the kind your brain files under mirage and not my problem. A vague flicker, heat playing with your eyes. The kind of thing you blame on dehydration or poor life choices. But the shimmer thickens, splits, recombines. The horizon grows teeth. Shapes rise from the sand, elongated, swaying, wrong for this early hour. Camels, I realize. 4. Then 10. Then more. Emerging from behind the ridge like they've been poured out of the desert itself. Their riders are wrapped in indigo from nose to ankle, cloth dyed so deep it drinks the light and doesn't apologize. Tuareg. Of course. If you're listening to this to fall asleep, I murmur softly, this is the part where you pretend you don't see the armed men on the horizon and focus on your breathing instead. They don't ride in a neat line, like soldiers. They flow. A loose fan of motion, spears catching the light, shields shifting, the silver of blades flashing when the sun blinks. They've chosen the high ground, of course. The desert may be indifferent, but raiders are not. I drop to a half crouch on the lee side of my dune. Sand slides under my palms, whispering complaints. The heat hasn't reached full cruelty yet, but it's already making promises. Below, on the lower flats, a smaller caravan moves, a thin line of pack animals and people struggling through the first soft dunes. Traders, probably, or pilgrims, or just unlucky. The Tuareg angle toward them, the way a wolf pack angles toward an injured antelope. The desert hums louder. A rider at the front raises his arm, the other slow. Everything stills. Wind, breath, time. Then something moves behind me. For a split second, my mind suggests dune, bird, or regrettable snack choice. Then I hear the softest thud of a boot sliding on sand and realize, nope, not behind me, beside me. I turn my head a fraction. One of the raiders has looped around, flanking my dune. Clever. He stands on the slope a few paces away, higher than me. Spear held casual, but not friendly. Only his eyes are visible above the indigo cloth. We regard each other. The desert breathes. I'm dressed wrong. No tribe's colors, no trade goods, no visible purpose. Time traveler chic is not helping my case. He narrows his eyes, then looks past me, judging line of sight, vantage point, threat level. Apparently, I rate somewhere between lost idiot and mild annoyance, because he doesn't stab me immediately. Progress. Down below, the smaller caravan hesitates. Some of the travelers slow, some speed up, as if there's a correct answer and no one remembers it. The Tuareg above fan out, forming a crescent, spears lower. The rider next to me shifts his weight, settling into the saddle. His fingers flex on the shaft of his spear. The movement is practiced. Bored. This is not his first negotiation. I consider waving and saying something disarming, like salam, or please don't ventilate me. Before I commit to anything, a glint catches my eye. Sunlight on metal, halfway down the slope. An archer. He plants his feet, nocks an arrow, and draws the bow with patient malice. He's not aiming at the traders. He's aiming higher, right about where my head is. My body moves before my brain files the paperwork. I fling myself sideways into the softer part of the dune, sand exploding around me in a grainy avalanche. Time stretches just enough for me to hear the hiss of the arrow slicing the air where my ear used to be. It hits the dune behind me with a solid, ugly thunk, burying deep. For a heartbeat, it quivers. Black fletching, trembling just in front of my eyes, close enough to kiss. I don't. Sand fills my mouth, my nose, my thoughts. I cough it out and laugh once, a short, breathless sound that feels like it belongs to someone else. Good news, I mutter into the dune. Either the desert just saved me, or it wants first dibs. The rider beside me barks something in Tamashek, sharp, irritated. The archer lowers his neck shot, annoyed at the wasted arrow. One of the other raiders laughs, the sound dry as bone. Below us, the traders break. They scatter in panicked arcs, yelling, some trying to run back toward rock, others whipping their animals forward as if speed can outrun geometry. It can't. The Tuareg begin to move, and then the desert finally decides it's had enough of everyone's drama. The first gust hits like a slap, warm, thick, loaded with grit. It rips my breath sideways. The second gust follows hard on its heels, stronger, angrier. Over the ridge to the west, a wall of sand begins to rise. At first, it looks like a low, brown cloud. Then it surges higher, eating horizon, swallowing sky. The light shifts from gold to a strange, bruised yellow. The hair on my arms lifts, as if my body knows what's coming before I do. I've seen sandstorms before in other lifetimes, other deserts. They're never polite. This one, though, this one feels theatrical. The rider near me stares at it for one calculating beat, then yells a command. The raiders pivot, suddenly less interested in easy plunder than in not dying blind and half buried. The wind roars. The air becomes teeth. Grains of sand hit my face with the persistence of bad news, stinging, pricking every exposed inch of skin. I yank my cloak up over my mouth and nose, squint until the world is just pain and outline. The sky disappears behind a curtain of moving dust. The smaller caravan vanishes. One moment they're figures scrambling like spilled beads. The next they're ghosts, swallowed whole. The raiders blur, then dissolve. Camels bawl. The sound snatched away. A spear clatters against rock. Someone curses the storm, and someone else laughs at him for thinking the storm cares. Within seconds, the world is nothing but colorless motion. I hunker down on the lee side of the dune, pressing into the sand as if the earth can remember which side I'm on. Sand piles up against my legs, tries to climb my back. The wind punches through my clothing in invisible fists. The storm roars so loud it wraps around into silence, a kind of whiteout for sound. Everything and nothing all at once. Time unhooks. Could be minutes, could be an hour. Grains of sand invade every fold, every seam. The desert has opinions about personal boundaries. I shut my eyes and let my other senses pick up the slack. The grit on my teeth, grinding. My heartbeat, louder than the wind for a moment. The faint jingle of a camel's harness somewhere to my left. A man's voice, praying, or swearing, or both. Eventually, in that way storms have, the rage burns out faster than you'd think possible. The roar thins. The sand's assault softens from war crime to aggressive exfoliation. I lift my head. The sky has returned, washed clean and brutally blue. The dunes have shifted. Soft ridges, where there were sharp edges. Shallow hollows filled in. Footprints erased. The world looks like it was just made, and whoever made it was in a hurry. Of the raiders, there is no clear sign. Here and there, a hump of movement, a distant figure, a camel silhouette against the brightening sky. Raiders don't stand still to be counted after a storm. They become rumor again. The traders below are tattered dots, regrouping, patting animals, checking limbs. The desert took less than it could have, which is about as close to mercy as you get out here. I push myself to my feet, sand sliding off me in tiny avalanches. My body feels like it's been rolled in grit and regret. Well, I sigh. That's one way to negotiate a ceasefire. The wind has changed. It's cooler now, threading in from the direction of the river far beyond the dunes. There's a faint new smell under the dust, smoke and sweat and animals. I climb one more ridge, and there they are. At first, just a line drawn across the far horizon, dark moats stitched into the edge of the dunes. Then, as the air clears and the sun climbs, they resolve into something impossible. A caravan. Not the strained little thread I saw earlier, but a leviathan of movement. Camels in hundreds, maybe thousands, marching in slow, heavy rhythm. Lines of men on foot, some in plain cloth, some armored, some carrying spears that catch the sun in disciplined glimmers. Banners ripple from long poles, colors deep against the pale sky, and at the very front, riders in indigo and white, turbans wrapped just so. Faces hidden, posture perfect. Their shields shine, their swords are clean, their formation precise. The front guard. Even from here, I can see dust clinging to them in a fine golden mist. At first, I think it's just the desert, but then the light shifts and it sparkles, sharp and bright. Gold. They're coated in wealth they don't own, marching ahead of a king whose name will tilt economies for fun. The desert hums under my feet. The dunes seem to lean in. Mansa Musa is coming. I stand at the edge of a sea that has no water and watch the first waves of his power roll toward Timbuktu. The guards at the point of it. A knife made of discipline and dust. Somewhere far ahead, the city waits. Unwalled, unready, completely certain it's about to become legend. Breathe, I tell you softly. In through the nose, out through history. This is only the first step. The desert has opened its eyes. The gold has not even arrived yet. When wealth hits like thunder. By the time I reach the western gate of Timbuktu, the city is humming like a drum stretched too tight. Not the elegant hum of a palace choir. Not the lazy hum of afternoon traders. This is the restless, jittering hum of thousands trying to hold their excitement without letting it explode all over the adobe walls. The gate itself looks like a wooden jaw ripped from the earth and propped upright. Timbers thick as thighs, iron hinges creaking under the weight of anticipation. The walls around it are sun-fired clay, cracked and ancient, as if the desert sculpted ribs and told the city, here, wear these. But the people, oh, the people. They swarm the road in such numbers that the sand itself seems to bow under them. Robes in white, indigo, ochre. Turbans coiled like questions the sky still hasn't answered. Children perched on shoulders, women balancing baskets and babies with equal skill. Elderly men leaning on staffs that look like they have opinions older than empires. The air smells like sweat, hope, cardamom, dust, and the unmistakable animal tang of a crowd preparing to witness history so large they'll bruise from remembering it. Rumors pinwheel overhead, 10,000 camels, all gold. He gave poets entire chests of coins, just to hear metaphors. His slaves wear gold sandals. Their slaves polish the sandals. Someone claims Mansa Musa bathes in liquid gold every morning. Someone else swears the caravans stretch from Gao to the horizon. Rumor is out here juggling knives. I wedge myself beside a date seller's stall and a very confrontational goat. The goat stares at me like I owe it money. I stare back, like I might report it to management. Negotiations remain tense. A tremor rolls through the crowd. A shifting of sandals. A narrowing of eyes. The caravan has reached the gates. First, the guards. Tall, blue-veiled, their spears catching the sun in dignified little explosions of light. Camels behind them carry saddles so ornate they deserve their own tax bracket. Gold glints. not fully unveiled yet, but teased, like Musa is warming up the audience. A hush sweeps the crowd, the kind that drops when a king enters the room, or when a storm decides it's finished stretching. A herald rides forward. He is dressed in white, and gold so bright it hurts to look directly at him, like staring at ambition without sunglasses. He lifts a pouch, a leather sack fat with promise. He shouts something ceremonial, probably rehearsed in a mirror. I can't hear the words, but I understand the gesture. He reaches into the pouch and throws gold. But this is no gentle sprinkle. It's a detonation, a spray of shimmering power arcing across the sky. The grains catch the sun like 100 tiny imprisoned stars trying to escape. Children lift their hands. Women reach instinctively. Men gasp like the sky itself just birthed treasure. For one miraculous moment, for the flicker of a heartbeat, it is beautiful. Then the first gold pellet hits the ground, and the world loses its mind. The crowd erupts, not forward, inward, collapsing on itself like a wave collapsing onto a shore. Bodies slam together, robes tear. Someone shrieks. Someone laughs like they've just tasted freedom. Sand jumps under the violence of feet. A shove hits from behind, another from the side. A child vanishes beneath a forest of legs. The goat flees, screaming in goat-ese. I told you people were dangerous. The date stall groans under the pressure of bodies. 3 men slam into it, reaching for a patch of dirt glittering with gold dust. The posts wobble, the beams shake. I do the math and decide to get horizontal. The stall collapses exactly where my skull was moments earlier. Dates explode like sugary grenades. A clay jar bursts, shards flying. Someone's foot plants next to my cheek hard enough to rattle my spine. Then the stampede hits. Feet everywhere. Sand in my mouth. A knee slams into my ribs. Someone trips over my hip, curses, kicks sand in my face as they scramble away. I curl into the smallest version of myself, which admittedly is still pretty tall, and pray to whatever deities are on duty today. 20 seconds, or 20 years. Impossible to tell. The wave moves on. I breathe again, badly. Crawling out from under the wreckage, I emerge like a disgruntled tortoise. People are on their knees, clawing at sand, scooping glittering dust into scarves, arguing, wrestling, trembling. And then, something hits the ground near my foot. A gold pellet. Not dust. Pellet. Solid. Real. Heavy. A fortune small enough to lose in laundry. It makes a soft tink against the earth. The entire world goes quiet in my skull. My hand moves on instinct. I reach down, and a body slams into me with the enthusiasm of a falling house. I go down. Hard. A hand darts past me, grabs the gold, fist clenched. But before he can stand, someone else tackles him. They roll. Dust explodes around them. A third man dives in and snatches the gold. He barely gets upright before someone trips him, then steals the prize from his hand. It's like watching poverty perform acrobatics. I wipe blood and dust from my lip, blinking through the chaos. 3 men. 1 nugget. A lifetime of hunger compressed into a single gleaming fragment. The herald looks horrified. Soldiers try to rein in the chaos without killing anyone. A skill that should earn hazard pay. The riot thins, leaving bruises and trembling joy in its wake. I stumble toward the Sankore quarter, my ribs complaining, my dignity somewhere under the date stall. And that's when I see the line. At first, I think it's pilgrims, heads bowed, steps slow. But then the gold glints, bars, rods, heavy discs wrapped in cloth, carried on backs, shoulders, poles. The carriers are chained, men with sand-cracked lips, men whose eyes look older than their bodies. men bent under wealth that will never belong to them. The march moves like a wounded creature, slow, pained, forced. Their sweat drips onto the packed earth in dark spots. Then one man falters. He's smaller, wirier. The bar on his shoulders is monstrous. His knees shake once, twice. On the third buckle, his leg folds like it's made of wet reeds. He crashes forward. The gold bar slams into the man behind him, who collapses sideways with a grunt. The line wavers, a chain reaction of agony, and its collapse is on a perfect collision course with me. I don't think. I move. I grab the nearest man by the elbow and heave with everything my spine can file a complaint about. His body lurches upright, just enough to counterbalance the falling weight behind him. The chain steadies. Barely. The collapsed man wheezes, one rib jutting unnaturally. His fingers claw the dirt. He lifts his head just enough to find my eyes. A moment, a nod, a single syllable of humanity shared in silence. Then the soldiers are on us. Spear butts, shoving, barking orders, snapping the line back into motion. I step back, heart cracking against my ribs. The smell hits me. Not sweat, not dust. Something metallic, sharp, like heat kissing hunger. Gold, they say, has no scent. These men prove otherwise. I watch the line disappear into the market's arteries. People stare, whisper, avert their eyes. Mansa Musa's wealth, I murmur, isn't counted in gold. It's counted in spines bending beneath it. The market exhales once the shadow of the caravan passes. Scarcity is loud, but wealth, arriving like thunder, leaves the same scent behind, burned air, and fear learning to keep very, very still. Where rivers swallow kingdoms. The camp blooms out of the dusk like a small temporary city that never learned about zoning laws. By the time I reach the caravan resting grounds, the sun is a red coin slipping into the pocket of the horizon. Tents have sprouted in crooked rows near the Niger's bank. Striped canvas, worn leather, woven mats staked into stubborn ground. Fires stitch orange circles into the blue evening, each one its own little universe of smoke, chatter, and blistered fingers. Gold is everywhere and nowhere. You don't see it poured out in fairy tale heaps. You see it in disciplined geometry. Pyramids of bars wrapped in cloth. Sealed chests lashed tight on low platforms. Guarded stacks of ingots that look more like weaponized boredom than treasure. Everything is counted. Everything is watched. The air hums with the quiet panic of people in charge of too much value and not enough certainty. The enslaved porters lie in rows near the shadows of the goods they carried, chains looping casually from ankle to ankle like someone's cruel idea of a bedtime story. Some are already asleep, breaths shallow, bodies curled around invisible pains. Others stare at the stars with the flat patience of men who know the sky's beauty is the only thing here they're actually allowed to keep. The Niger murmurs nearby, broad, dark, and pretending to be harmless. I drift closer to the water's edge, drawn by the sound of it. The river here is not a trickle. It's a slow, heavy serpent, smoothed by centuries, its surface reflecting the last bruises of daylight. The bank is a slope of dry, crumbly earth, patched with thin grass and stubborn roots. A line of camels still moves along the edge, late arrivals being coaxed down toward the shallows. Their saddles creak. Their breaths puff in short, insulted bursts. One in particular catches my eye. He's overloaded. The chest on his back is not a box. It's an argument with gravity. Thick, rectangular, iron-banded. Two men walk beside him, one holding the lead rope, the other steadying the chest with both hands, as if trying to have a personal conversation with physics. The camel's legs tremble once, twice. Easy, his handler murmurs, patting its neck. Sweat slicks the animal's flanks, glistening in the fading light like someone painted fear onto its hide. The slope down to the water is steeper here. Some genius decided this was the perfect shortcut. The camel's front hoof hits loose silt. It slides. Everything happens at once. The camel's eyes go wide, a flash of white in its dust-colored face. Its legs splay. The handler jerks the rope. Too late. The animal's weight tilts under the crushing mass on its back. The world tilts with it. The camel goes down, chest and all, in a horrible slow-motion stagger that ends in a sickening whump and a spray of dirt. The handler is yanked forward, feet skidding, hands clamped around the rope like his life is tied to it, because it is. Momentum finishes what gravity started. The chest slides. The camel lurches. The handler is dragged down the slope as the whole ungainly knot of flesh and metal scrapes toward the water. I am already stumbling forward before my better judgment can fill out a complaint form. The handler's heels dig trenches in the dirt. The rope is burning his palms to meet. A thin, raw scream tears from his throat, half fear, half refusal. He slams into the riverbank, legs half in the water, half out. The chest follows, colliding against the camel's flank. For a moment, everything teeters on the edge, a grotesque balancing act. Then the earth gives up. The bank collapses in a slurry of silt and sand, and the three of them, camel, chest, handler, go tumbling into the Niger. The splash is enormous. The river absorbs them with a greedy, rolling gulp. Without thinking, I splash down the slope after them, boots sliding, hands grabbing at air. The rope whips past me like a live snake. I grab it. Bad plan. The rope yanks me forward so hard my spine tries to exit through the back of my head. My feet lose any concept of traction. For one dizzy heartbeat, I am nothing but limbs and regret tied to someone else's disaster. The river is suddenly right there, cold, black, and very ambitious. My boots hit the crumbling lip of the bank. It disintegrates under me. I pitch forward, angle wrong, and get half a second's worth of a very clear thought. This is how people become anecdotes. Then a hand slams into the back of my collar, and reality jerks sideways. Something, someone, hauls me backward with the casual strength of a man used to moving uncooperative objects. My teeth clack together hard enough to reset centuries. The rope slips from my fingers, skin peeling, and whips into the dark after its owners. I land on my back on solid ground, lungs protesting. Mud streaks my clothes. The river roars below, indifferent, busy. The camel doesn't come back up. Neither does the chest. The handler surfaces once, spluttering, hands flailing in the churn of broken bank and gold-weighted water. I catch a glimpse of his face, eyes wide, mouth open, a brief animal howl of terror before he vanishes again. The river smooths itself over the insult. Ripples spread, soften, forget. The hand still gripping my collar lets go. I roll to my side, coughing, and look up into the unimpressed face of a soldier. His helmet is dented. His eyes are not. The insignia on his chest glints in the half-light, as if even the metal wants everyone to know who's in charge here. He glances at the river, jaw working once. Then he spits into the water, like he and the Niger are old enemies sharing one more insult. The Niger takes tribute too, he says flatly. I wheeze a laugh because my brain is too rattled to know when to shut up. Tell your emperor, I rasp. The water just got a promotion. For a second, I think he might hit me. Then One corner of his mouth twitches, a reluctant, treasonous little almost smile. He shakes his head and walks away, already shouting orders about shifting the remaining chests uphill. The machine of the caravan grinds on, one gold box lighter, one anonymous handler short. The river keeps its secret. Night settles like a slow exhale. The fires burn lower, their crackle a background murmur beneath the soft clink of chains, the rustle of cloth, the sighs of men too exhausted to dream. The sky over Timbuktu is a black bowl spilled full of stars. Thousands of them, uncaring witnesses to wealth and drowning and everything between. Somewhere behind the lines of guards and goods, a different kind of sound begins. A low hum, a wordless rolling tone that threads between tents and over sleeping forms like smoke. The griots have started. I follow the sound to the edge of a fire where a few men sit with instruments cradled in their laps. Koras, ngonis, thin drums with skins that gleam like polished moons. Their fingers move almost lazily, teasing melodies out of strings and wood, as if the music has been sitting in the air all day, waiting for someone to acknowledge it. They're not performing for the emperor. They're not performing for the guards. They're performing for time. One griot sits slightly apart, head bowed, tapping a slow rhythm on a calabash resting in his lap. His hair is threaded with gray. His eyes catch and hold the firelight when he looks up, as if there's a small, private constellation trapped behind them. He sings, not loud, not showy. A slow, coiling line of words in a language I know only in glimpses. I catch fragments, like shells in the surf. Rivers, kings, sand, memory. The song winds through the camp. Men shift in their sleep, as if something old and familiar has brushed their dreams. Even some of the guards settle, shoulders easing, spears lowering a fraction. The griot finishes the verse and lets the calabash fall silent. The other musicians keep playing, layering sound like blankets over the night. He stands, joints cracking softly, and steps away from the fire. Straight toward me. I freeze, not out of fear, exactly, but out of respect for whatever orbit he seems to operate in. He stops at my shoulder and looks out toward the dark strip of the Niger. Strange night, he says, voice low, accent rolling the words into something earthier and older. You could say that, I murmur. The river ate well. His eyes glint. It always does. We stand in silence for a moment, listening to the water and the faint iron music of chains being shifted in the dark. Your king travels with much gold, I say quietly. Enough to bend the world a little when he passes. He huffs a soft, humorless laugh. Gold bends men long before it bends the world. The drums behind us soften, heartbeat slow. He leans closer, his breath warm, words slipping out like something not meant for the fire's ears. Great wealth breeds great hunger, he whispers, and hungers travel faster than caravans. There's a weight in the sentence that has nothing to do with metal, a hint of futures he has no right to know, and yet somehow does. I turn to ask him, hunger where? Hunger for what? Whose hunger? But he's already stepping back, folding himself into the dark beyond the firelight. For a second I see the outline of his shoulders, the tilt of his head. Then he is gone, swallowed by tents and shadow and the soft, relentless song. The river gurgles, amused. Behind me, gold gleams under thick cloth, dreaming of new markets, new myths, new collapses. I watch the water and feel the night settle around my shoulders, heavy with the knowledge that rivers and stories both have long memories and very particular ideas about interest. Tonight, I think, the Niger keeps a chest, and a man. Tomorrow, the world will start learning the price. When knowledge burns, brighter than gold. By the time I reach the Sankore Learning Quarter, the air has changed. Gone is the metallic tang of gold and river water. Gone is the sweat-thick frenzy of the gate. Here, the world smells of parchment and dust and ink, a scent so old it feels like it has its own pulse. Lantern light glows in the dusk, like jewels buried in the ribs of the city. Walls rise in sun-baked tears, their surfaces painted by the shifting shadows of palm leaves. Every footstep kicks up a fine haze of gold-tinted dust that catches the light like scripture trying to write itself in midair. If Timbuktu is a body, this neighborhood is the brain, full of muttering, memory, and the occasional migraine. The courtyard of the Sankore Madrasa spreads before me, its sand-traced geometry delicate as calligraphy. Students sit in semicircles, cloth-bound notebooks balanced on their knees, reciting verses in a soft, steady chant that weaves through the air like a living rope. Their voices rise and fall in disciplined waves, the kind of collective breathing only communities with ancient traditions ever master. A teacher, with a beard like a well-organized thundercloud, paces slowly in front of them, reciting, correcting, guiding. The entire courtyard hums with purpose, which is exactly why the panic is so jarring. It begins on the far side, near the merchant stalls lining the outer wall. A man with ink-stained fingers jolts upright from a table covered in scrolls. His eyes bulge, his hand trembles. He grabs one ledger, then another, clutching them like an armful of guilty secrets. And he's not alone. All along the wall, merchants who normally brag about their literacy suddenly look like men discovering an overdue bill from God himself. The source becomes clear as a small procession threads into the courtyard. Musa's accountants. They walk with the serene menace of men whose math can ruin you. Their robes are immaculate, their tablets immaculate, their faces utterly unimpressed with everyone's excuses. One of them taps his stylus against a wooden board with the rhythm of a judge bored with the defense. A ripple of terror skitters through the merchants. Then, boom! Someone makes the first move. A man lunges for a brazier, grabs a clay pot of burning charcoal, and dumps it directly onto his stack of ledgers. The dry parchment ignites with the enthusiasm of tinder that's been waiting its whole life for this moment. Within 5 seconds, every merchant within eyesight is torching something. Scrolls, records, tax logs, debt tallies. Flames bloom along the courtyard like a chain of desperate, very incriminating flowers. I stumble backward as heat licks the air. Charred flakes swirl upward, little black birds that forget how to fly halfway up and crumble into nothing. Smoke unfurls like a jealous god rising from a long nap, tasting the air, deciding it would like more. Students choke and shift, but keep chanting. The teacher barely glances up. Apparently, this is not the madrasa's first ledger barbecue. I cover my mouth with my sleeve. The fire gobbles another shelf. Someone screams, not in pain, but in financial regret. Fire reveals character, and right now, that character is very nervous about taxes. Just as I step toward a clearer patch of air, I hear a deep, tearing crack. I look up. A scroll shelf, tall, stuffed with parchments, and held together by architectural optimism, tilts forward. No, I whisper. It tilts further. No, no. Then it goes. The shelf collapses like a dying giant, sending a storm of dust and brittle parchment into the courtyard. A scribe who'd been scrambling to gather books dives left, but not fast enough. The wood hits him with a sickening thud. Scrolls leap skyward in a final frantic flutter, little white birds trying to escape the fall. They scatter around me, some unfurling midair, revealing half-finished maps, clipped poems, equations that might never matter again. I stare at the crumpled body under the splintered shelf. His hand still grips a quill. Reflexive loyalty, I suppose. Knowledge weighs less than gold, I mutter, stunned, unless it lands on your head. The smoke thickens. Flames chew their way through the lower stalls. The accountants don't bother trying to extinguish anything. They simply write notes on their tablets with the calm of men cataloging the world's worst tutoring session. But in the center of the courtyard, in that protected sacred space, the students don't break. Their chant intensifies, rising above the crackling fire. Verse after verse spills into the darkening sky, stubborn, steady, defiant. It's the sound of a city refusing to let fire interrupt its education. I edge deeper into the courtyard, trying to escape a rolling line of smoke. There, near the outer edge of the chanting circle, a boy sits cross-legged, back straight, face streaked with soot. He's not looking at the teacher. He's not looking at the burning stalls. He's not looking at the collapsing shelves. He's looking at the tiny scrap of parchment in his lap, copying every word onto a fresh sheet. Except, wait. His parchment is blank. He's writing from memory, not glancing away, not hesitating. The charcoal stick in his hand moves with the surety of someone transcribing from a voice older than the city. I kneel beside him as flames crackle behind us. "You memorize the whole page?" I ask softly. He doesn't look up. "If ink burns," he murmurs, "the words shouldn't." His hand moves faster. A gust of wind throws burning ash across the courtyard. One ember lands on the edge of the original manuscript he's copying from. The page browns, curls, then vanishes. The boy doesn't blink. He keeps writing. I swallow a lump in my throat that feels older than any dynasty. Students chant. Merchants burn their lies. Accountants take notes. Dust floats. Fire eats. Memory survives. I step back and watch the boy. His small shoulders square against the weight of flames and truth. This city, I whisper, would rather burn ink than bend truth. And tonight, that feels like the bravest thing I've ever seen. The day. Every shadow grew teeth. Jingreber rises out of the afternoon haze like a sandcastle built by gods who had better things to do but didn't want to be rude. Half-finished walls climb toward the sun in stepped layers, each brick hand-mixed from mud, straw, sweat, and prayer. Wooden beams jut from the structure in crooked rows, scaffolding, decoration, spiritual vertebrae, depending whom you ask. The air tastes like mortar dust and incense, like a holy place that hasn't decided yet whether it wants to bless you or bury you. Hundreds gather around the construction site, voices blending into a low, trembling hum. Workers shout over pounding mallets. Scholars murmur blessings. Pilgrims chant. It's the kind of sound that makes your bones feel older than your birth certificate. I slip into the edge of the crowd, positioning myself beside one of the giant pillars that will eventually hold up the mosque's prayer hall. Its shadow is a slanted blade across the earth. Cool, tall, and deeply uninterested in my survival. The crowd sways, bends, and settles again as royal guards begin clearing a path. Somewhere behind them, hidden in the dusk glow, Mansa Musa approaches. Not yet visible, but near enough that the air itself seems to tighten its posture. If he sneezed right now, I murmur, someone would invent a religion. A woman beside me snorts. A man behind her crosses himself twice. Another man whispers, Don't joke about kings. I smile. In my experience, kings provide most of the jokes. Then I see him. A man in indigo. Not unusual in Timbuktu. Tuareg cloth is half the color palette here. But this man moves wrong. Too smooth. Too directed. Like a fish swimming against the river, barely disturbing the current. He weaves through clusters of workers, steps over a pile of timber, ducks under a hanging mat, and never once looks up. No hesitation. No confusion. Predators move like that. My stomach knots. My skin knows before my brain does. He's heading toward the royal path. He passes close enough that I catch a whiff of something sharp. Metal oil, sweat, nerves. He slips a hand beneath his robe. Fabric shifts. Sunlight catches. Steel. My breath sticks. I open my mouth to shout. But I'm too late, or just lucky enough to witness what comes next. A royal guard lunges out of nowhere, ramming into the assassin with the force of a collapsing wall. The blade flashes, arcs, misses the king entirely, and carves a bright line through air that will probably tell the story for centuries. The two men crash into a pile of bricks. Dust geysers skyward. The assassin rolls, quick as a scorpion, knife still in hand. But the guard is quicker. Steel meets flesh in one heavy, decisive stroke. The assassin's body jerks once, twice, then goes slack. He collapses into the dirt with a sound like a sack of wet parchment. For a heartbeat, the crowd does nothing. No breath, no words, just a collective, terrified inhale. A city turning into a single lung. Someone screams. Someone faints. Someone mutters a prayer shaped like a curse. I grip the pillar, my palms sweating against the warm, gritty stone. The guard wipes his blade, face expressionless, as though he's trimming a candle wick instead of cleaning death from steel. Two more soldiers drag the body away, leaving only a dark stain and a story future scholars will argue about forever. I exhale shakily. Timbuktu, I whisper to myself, where even the shadows fill out assassination paperwork. The crowd begins to spread, tension loosening like knotted rope. And then the wind shifts. The first gust comes as a warning, a soft push, a swirl of dust in a lazy spiral. The second gust is not lazy. It slams into us like a giant angry lung, inhaling the entire square at once. Sand rips across the courtyard, hot and sharp, stinging skin, scraping eyes. Cloth explodes upward. Veils whip like startled birds. A tray of offerings flips midair, scattering dates and coins and dignity. The sky dims. The world tilts. Someone shouts, "A sandstorm!" No kidding. The storm hits full force, an ancient tantrum straight from the Sahara's chest. It howls between the half-built walls, making the beams vibrate like furious harp strings. People collapse to their knees. Others run blindly and immediately regret running blindly. I cling to the pillar like a barnacle who's reconsidering its life choices. Sand slashes sideways. The air tastes like stone in panic. Somewhere close, a child screams. Somewhere far, a camel bellows like a demon who stubbed its toe. The storm giggles. Yes, giggles, in a dialect older than Mali. The wind has humor, and none of it is kind. The world turns orange, red, then brown. I squeeze my eyes shut, bow my head, and brace as the storm tries to peel me off the pillar like an unripe fruit. Minutes stretch, or maybe seconds elongate under stress. Time breaks its ankle in storms like this. Then, silence. Not full silence, but the sudden dip in volume when a monstrous thing gets bored and wanders off. I blink grit from my lashes. The sand falls away in a sigh. The sky reappears, pale and shaken. People are coughing, sobbing, laughing with the hysteria that follows close dances with death. A woman beside me clutches her child, shaking. A man kneels, forehead to the dirt, whispering thanks to every god he can remember by name. Someone retrieves a lost sandal with the reverence normally reserved for relics, and slowly, stubbornly, the caravan forms again. Slower now, humbled. The king's banners sag under dust. The guards' eyes are sharper. The pace is careful, as if everyone collectively remembers how breakable humanity is under a sky that plays rough. I straighten, dust myself off, and brush sand out of my ears. Well, I say softly, if this is the welcome party, I can't wait to see the goodbye. And with that, I fall in step beside the crowd, toward the street of pilgrims, toward the next chapter, toward a king whose shadow is heavy enough to bend a city's spine. Where gold becomes myth, dawn in Timbuktu arrives like a secret being told too loudly. The sky doesn't so much lighten as admit it's been hiding colors all night. Soft indigo leaking to bruised purple, then a slow, honey-thick gold that drips over the rooftops and mud walls. The air is cool for exactly 3.5 minutes, like the desert's apology before it remembers who it is. I follow the slow current of bodies toward the palace courtyard. It's quieter than it has any right to be. No market shouting, no haggling, no clatter of stubborn donkeys or arguments about whose dates are fresher. Just the shush of sandals on dust and the occasional cough, dry and tired, like the city clearing its throat before a speech it didn't write. The palace walls rise ahead, thick mud brick and deliberately unflattered by decoration. If the gold is inside, the walls are pretending not to know. The gate yawns open, guarded by men in armor that gleams like polished dusk. We spill into the courtyard together. Silence thickens, slow, viscous, like melted honey clinging to everything. I can hear my heart, my breath, and somewhere, the faint jingle of chains. The packed earth is scarred with footprints from last night, sharp, deep, overlapping. A geography of exhaustion. Then the palanquin appears. It moves into view like a small, mobile sunrise. Curtains of embroidered cloth, poles carried by chosen men whose muscles have clearly filed formal complaints. When the bearers kneel, the palanquin lowers with theatrical care. Mansa Musa steps out as if gravity works differently for him. His robes don't look woven, they look poured. Layers of white, crimson, and gold that catch the early light so fiercely it feels like he robbed the sun and left it an IOU. Gold bracelets wink at his wrists. A torque clasps his neck. Rings crowd his fingers like clingy planets orbiting a personal star. For a moment, everyone forgets to breathe. Then I see the line behind him. Not an orderly procession, a trail, a living summary of everything this journey has cost. Men limping, faces wine-burned from sandstorms, eyes rimmed red, cloth still carrying the ghost of yesterday's dust. Soldiers carrying the wrapped body of the assassin in indigo, his failed revolution reduced to a bundle that bends across 2 shoulders. Porters, with bandaged ribs and swollen hands, walking empty for the first time in weeks. No bars of gold, no chests, just the memory of weight. A small group of handlers glancing toward the river's far bank, where a chest full of gold sits in the Niger's new resume forever. Scholars holding soot-stained manuscripts to their chests, as if the words might try to escape if their grip loosens. Children near the back, still dusted with faint traces of gold that cling to their hair and eyelashes, like the riot forgot some of its confetti. It isn't an arrival. It's aftermath wearing ceremony's clothes. A faint breeze moves through the courtyard, stirring cloth and nerves. Somewhere in the line, someone groans softly. Another stifles a cough because coughing at a king's entrance feels like bad form. Mansa Musa lifts a hand, and the courtyard responds like it's plugged directly into him. Heads bowing, bodies folding, voices dropping to prayer or something close enough to pass. I stay standing at the edges, the convenient invisible foreigner watching. This is the man who turned gold into a rumor that broke economies. The one whose pilgrimage has already started bending maps and interest rates in cities he hasn't reached yet. A living exaggeration who somehow keeps arriving as fact. He surveys his people, not just the nobles, but the guards, the porters, the scribes, the barefoot kids staring at him like he's every story their uncles told around the fire. For one long, stretched-out moment, the city and the king look at each other like two mirrors trying to decide who started it. Then the muezzin's call ripples from somewhere beyond the walls, soft, strong, pulling the street into a single shared breath. Morning prayer, morning reckoning. The caravan will move soon. The city will adjust. Gold will change hands. Ledgers will be revised. Stories will start growing. I turn away from the courtyard, following a smaller path, a side stair that snakes up toward the higher ground. The final ascent to Sankore feels like walking up the spine of a story. The city unfolds beneath me in layered terraces and interlocking roofs. Mud walls glowing in early light. Smoke-threaded courtyards, narrow arteries of alleyway where normal life is already trying to resurface. The great mosque of Sankore rises at the top like a thought that refused to stay in someone's head. Minaret teeth bite into the sky. Wooden beams jut from its walls in uneven ranks, where men can climb to replaster after each rainy season, keeping the clay from melting back into anonymity. I reach the high platform and step to the edge. Sunrise arrives properly now. Light spills over Timbuktu, like revelation poured from a tilted bowl. The city below is a tapestry of contradictions. Smoke from burned ledgers curls upward in thin, gray ghosts, carrying the scent of ink, lies, and last-minute repentance. Somewhere, an accountant is still sweating. Scattered coins glitter in alley dust, half-trodden, half-hidden. Tiny monuments to yesterday's riot, today's bargaining chips, and tomorrow's argument. Sandstorm residue powders rooftops and streets, caught in cracks and cloth. The desert's autograph on everything. Gold dust floats in narrow beams of light like displaced stars that lost their way and decided the streets would do. Every now and then, someone steps through a shaft of sun and sparkles, oblivious. Movement holds it all together. Porters limp past wells, empty-handed but still chained. Women sweep steps with more force than necessary, as if they can scrub the fatigue out of the day before it begins. A boy crouches beside a doorway, tracing rough letters in the sand. Numbers, maybe. Names. Debts. Dreams. Below, Sankare's courtyard swells with students and scholars. From up here, their white and indigo robes look like waves lapping against the mosque walls. Their voices rise in recitation. Not frantic, not panicked. Steady. Verse layered over verse, like bricks over time. Somewhere nearer the palace, I hear laughter. Sharp, too loud. The brittle humor of men relieved to still be alive. It floats up, mingling with the murmur of prayer, the crackle of rekindled cooking fires, the muted rumble of camels complaining about the concept of workload. And then, threading through all of it, like a needle pulling history into a single seam, a song. A griot stands in the square below, robes catching light, a kora cradled against his body. Fingers pluck strings with the kind of ease that only comes from decades of effort disguised as talent. His voice rises, not shouting, not whispering, just true. The desert gave him rivers of gold, but the road gave him dust in his lungs. The king arrived in the clothes of a star, but it is our backs that remember his weight. People pause, not all, but enough. A few heads tilt. A guard glances over, expression unreadable. A child drifts closer to listen. The griot's eyes are half closed, seeing more than the square in front of him. Camels carry his glory, slaves carry his load, scribes carry his memory, and the city carries his shadow. He lets the last note linger, then fall. The kora sings a soft, melancholy answer. The desert gave him wealth. He finishes. Words almost conversational now. But Timbuktu gave him memory. The line settles into me like a stone, finding the bottom of a well. Around us, life resumes. Someone shouts about bread. Another haggles over salt. A scribe tucks a scroll under his arm like a child. A porter stretches a shoulder that still remembers the gold. And up here, with dust in my lungs and centuries under my feet, I realize something that feels so obvious, I'm mildly annoyed it had the audacity to arrive as insight. Maybe greatness isn't measured by gold, I whisper, but by the shadows it leaves behind. Mansa Musa will leave. His caravan will move on, toward legends of Cairo, toward European maps that suddenly remember West Africa exists. Prices will warp. Stories will swell. Generations from now, people will argue about how much gold he really gave away, as if the exact number changes the weight on these streets. But the shadow stays, in the cracked ribs of the porters, in the ledgers rewritten and then regretted, in the scholars who chose ink over fear, in the children who saw dust become coins and coins become bruises, in a city that now knows, for better or worse, exactly how much it can bend without breaking. Below me, the griot starts another song, already weaving today into myth, smoothing the rough edges, polishing the horror into something beautiful enough to remember and distant enough to bear. That's how history works. It trims the blood, buffs the gold, leaves just enough truth to sting. The sun climbs higher. Timbuktu glows, part market, part library, part ledger, part altar. Gold becomes story. Story becomes inheritance. Inheritance becomes responsibility, usually for people who never saw the gold in the first place. I step back from the edge, letting the city blur slightly, like an image on old parchment. Rest easy, friends. The rabbit hole of time still has more slow steps. Until we meet again, Silas is signing off.